Twilight, a Smut Retelling from Edward's point of view, narrated by Iro-sensei. Chapter 1, The First Fire. You noticed her scent before her voice, before her name. It struck you like lightning, the air around her burning with it, thick with something too rich, too precise, too tempting. You didn't breathe. You couldn't, because if you did, you'd lose control. And for the first time in decades, you wanted to. She sat across the room from you in biology, unaware, fragile, mortal, unremarkable to everyone else, but to you, she was the only sound in a silent world, the only color in a grayscale eternity. You hated her. You wanted her. You watched the curve of her neck, the way her pulse flickered beneath her skin. Your mind burned with images, your teeth buried there, your fingers in her hair, your body pinning hers down as she gasped for breath. You left town. It didn't help. Her image stayed behind your eyes, her scent in your lungs, her voice you hadn't even heard yet, echoing through the emptiness you'd once called peace. When you returned, it wasn't because you'd conquered the urge, it was because you couldn't live without it. You spoke to her for the first time, and it hurt, because her eyes met yours and didn't flinch, because she smiled and you felt your walls begin to crumble, because she made you laugh and it sounded real. You became obsessed, not just with her blood, but with her. Her thoughts, frustratingly silent to you, drove you mad. You listened to everyone else's mind in proximity, trying to triangulate her from fragments. You followed her without her knowing, watched her sleep, listened to her dream. She whispered your name once, in sleep. You almost shattered. Your need for her outgrew fear. You let her get close, closer, until her breath mingled with yours and your fingers touched. And still you resisted. But one night, when the moon hung low and her skin glowed like alabaster in the dark, you kissed her, lightly at first, then deeper. Her mouth opened to you and her fingers clutched your shirt and you pressed her against the bed, trembling with the weight of your own restraint. You wanted more. You wanted all. You pulled back. When she whimpered, it nearly broke you. But you couldn't have her, not fully, not yet. You feared you'd lose control, hurt her, ruin her. So instead, you gave her everything else. You memorized her body with your hands, not your teeth. Your tongue found her nipples, your fingers slid between her thighs, and you learned the sound of her climax like scripture. She came with your name in her mouth, and your eyes locked on hers, and you held her as though she might vanish if you let go. And still, you didn't take her, not the way you wanted, because you loved her more than the hunger, and that, for you, was the first true miracle. Chapter 2, The Last Night of Almost. You believed you could hold back the darkness forever, just for her. Your body, ancient and cold, became her sanctuary. Night after night, she came to you, and each time your control frayed further. She touched you with reverence and hunger, whispering things into your ear that made your dead heart ache to beat again. She loved you, and you, God, you worshipped her. You learned her breath, her rhythms, how her eyes fluttered when you pressed deep inside her, how she came undone with her mouth to your throat, whispering, "Don't stop, please, don't stop." But you always stopped, just short of losing control, just shy of devouring her. You began to imagine forever, you began to want more, but danger crept at the edges, other creatures, other hungers. The world was not kind and did not care that you loved her. You saved her, once, from the kind of monster you barely kept caged inside yourself. And afterward, she trembled, not in fear, but in desire. She kissed you harder that night, rode you harder, as if defying death with every thrust. But you couldn't shake the truth. The most dangerous thing in her life was you. You watched her sleep one night, the moon brushing her skin in silver. You traced her face, memorized the shape of her lips, her lashes, her collarbone. You imagined what it would be like to lose her, and that was the moment the decision took root. You would leave, not because you stopped loving her, but because you loved her too much to risk letting her die for you. You didn't tell her that night. You touched her instead, slowly, reverently, as if you were already mourning. You made love to her with every ounce of restraint and fire left in you, and when she cried out your name, clinging to you like you were the only thing keeping her on this earth, you almost changed your mind. Almost. But morning would come, and with it, the end. Chapter 3. The Hollow Before the Breath. You left her in the forest. You told yourself it was mercy, that if you walked away, she would be safe, that if you tore her heart now, it would mend, that you could take the pain, all of it, and disappear into the shadows, leaving her whole. But she wasn't whole, and neither were you. The moment you vanished, it began. The ache, the silence, the scream behind your teeth. You wandered through night after night, city after city, trying not to smell her everywhere, on strangers, in daydreams, in the press of air against your face. You didn't sleep, couldn't. You remembered her fingers clawing at your back, her lips trembling beneath yours, her moans like sin-made song. You remembered how her thighs gripped you when she came, how her breath whispered please as you held her on the edge and refused to let her fall. And now you were alone. You told yourself she would move on, that someone else, someone warm, someone safe, would cradle her at night, touch her in ways you no longer deserved to. The thought should have comforted you. Instead, it destroyed you. You avoided your family, drifted across continents, fed only when you had to, never from those who reminded you of her scent. You starved, willingly, because nothing could satisfy you, not without her. And then, one day, you heard it, a whisper, a rumor, a lie you wanted to be false. She died. The news hit like sunlight, blinding, burning, consuming. You didn't breathe, didn't scream, just decided. If she was gone, then so were you. You walked straight into death's mouth, not with fear, but with relief. You would show yourself, expose your truth to the human world. Let them recoil, let them destroy you. It was the only thing left that made sense. But then, her voice, soft, choked, alive. She was alive. You saw her again in the chaos of that moment, her eyes wide with fear, her hand on your chest, and took everything in you not to collapse. You weren't dead, she wasn't dead, and yet part of you had never left the forest. Later, when you kissed her again, your hands shook. You kissed her breasts like apology, her thighs like prayer. You slid into her slowly, needing to feel her surround you, needing to know she still chose you. She cried your name, her nails sinking into your back, her legs wrapped around you like chains. You came inside her with a sob, burying your face in her neck, and for the first time in months, you breathed. Chapter 4. The Returning Flame. Coming back to her felt like stepping into sunlight for the first time in a century. It should have burned, but instead it healed. You didn't know what you'd find, maybe hatred, maybe emptiness, maybe a girl changed so deeply by your absence that she'd already become someone else. What you found was worse and more beautiful. She was broken, not visibly, but you could see it in her eyes, in the way her voice faltered when she said your name, in the way she stood like someone who'd forgotten how to be held. You had done this, and still she let you in. She let you take her hands, let you kiss her palms, let you lie beside her and whisper, I never stopped loving you. But you didn't rush. You stayed nights without touching her, let her fall asleep beside you, your hand barely brushing her hip. You listened to her breathing, memorizing again the rhythm of her heart. And you watched him, the one who stayed. He made her laugh, made her smile in ways you hadn't seen since before you broke her. He looked at her like she was the sun and he was still mortal. And sometimes she looked back. It cut you deeper than any blade. You never asked her if she kissed him, if she let him touch her, if she whispered his name in the dark. You didn't want the answers, because you already knew the truth. She needed you both, but she loved you. Still, you had to earn her again, so you touched her slowly, with apology in every fingertip. You kissed her wrist before her lips. You slid your hands beneath her shirt, but never forced the moment. You waited for her to ask. And when she did, when she pulled you over her, whispered, "I want you," you took her gently, desperately, as if each thrust might stitch her back together. You made love to her with lips to her neck, teeth grazing but never taking, your body humming with guilt and hunger and something close to worship. After, she cried into your chest and you held her, knowing this was only the beginning of the storm. You would have to fight for her again, not just with others, but with the part of yourself that had once let her go. Chapter 5. The Battle Before the Vow. You never believed you'd touch her again, not like this, not after what you did. But there she was, still warm, still beautiful, still herself, and she forgave you. With tears in her eyes and your name in her voice, she let you back in. And you, starved and reverent, fell to your knees and thanked a God you hadn't believed in for a century. You held her again, at last, but this time she wasn't only yours. There was another now. You smelled him on her skin, earth and heat and something feral. You saw how she laughed with him, how her body leaned unconsciously in his direction, and it made something ancient rise in you, not hunger, possession. You were immortal, timeless, and still you were afraid. Afraid she'd choose him, afraid that all your restraint, all your sorrow and sacrifice had driven her into arms that could burn but never break. You touched her gently at first, as if afraid she might slip through your fingers again, but she didn't flinch. She moaned. She pulled you close, let you undress her slowly, let you lay her on the bed like a secret rediscovered. Your mouth found her breasts, your tongue circled her nipple, and her fingers tangled in your hair like they remembered you, not him. She whispered, "I never stopped wanting you." You took her then, not like before, careful, trembling. This time you claimed. You pressed into her until her breath broke, until her thighs quaked, until the sheets tore beneath her fists. You made her come twice before you let yourself go, grinding deep, shaking, groaning her name like an oath carved into stone. And still the fear didn't fade, because he lingered. He loved her too, and she cared for him. You watched them from a distance, saw the way his warmth comforted her, how his presence soothed the wounds you caused, and you hated him for it. But more than that, you envied him, because he could touch her without fear, love her without breaking her, offer her a life you never could. Yet she still chose you, again and again. When the storm came, new threats, old enemies, you stood at her side, not just as her lover, but her protector, her mate. And that night, before the battle, when the world seemed ready to split open, she pulled you into her arms, and you didn't hold back. You kissed her like a dying man, fucked her like it might be your last breath. Your bodies moved with purpose, with fire, with truth. And when you finished inside her, you whispered, "Mine." And she answered with a moan that made forever feel possible again. Chapter 6. The Last Breath of Restraint. You hadn't won her, you had been chosen, and that truth humbled you every day. After the war, after the danger, after the fires cooled, she was still there, still reaching for your hand, still whispering your name when sleep took her, still looking at you like you were something beautiful, not broken. She wanted you, all of you, and that terrified you more than any enemy ever could. You held her every night now, not like before, tense, afraid to shift your weight for fear of bruising her. Now you let yourself breathe her in, let your hands map her body under her clothes, let your mouth taste the soft curve beneath her ear. But you still didn't take her, because once you did, there'd be no going back. You memorized her skin like scripture, her breath as she leaned into your touch, her moans when your fingers slipped beneath the hem of her shirt and found the wet heat waiting between her thighs. You would bring her to climax with your mouth, your hands, your whispered worship, and every time you held back. She begged you some nights, whispered, pleaded, "Please, I want you, all of you." But you only shook your head, lips to her temple, voice breaking. Soon after the wedding, after the vow, you wanted her to have everything, the world's approval, a moment that was hers, not born of blood or shadow, and she let you wait, even when it hurt. Even when her body trembled beneath you, slick and ready, her thighs parted and welcoming. You would hold her afterward, trembling with the force of your restraint, and she would kiss you like she had relived how it felt for you to be inside her. You were afraid of just how much you wanted to lose yourself in her again, but as the days slipped closer to the ceremony, something shifted. The laughter came easier, the nights grew bolder. You let her straddle you on the couch once, shirtless, her hips grinding against your hardness through your pants. She rode you until you came, gasping her name, your head thrown back in surrender. She kissed you after with a smile. "We're almost there." And you knew, yes, you were, not to an ending, but to forever. Chapter 7, The Vow Beyond Breath. You stood at the end of the aisle, frozen, not with fear, not with doubt, but with awe, because when she appeared, walking towards you, veiled in white, skin glowing beneath candlelight, you forgot every word you'd ever known, every year you'd endured, every oath you'd made to stay alone. She was your beginning, and when her hands slid into yours, trembling and warm, you whispered vows that weren't just promises, they were prayers. You didn't know how to breathe during the ceremony, but when you kissed her, when her mouth opened to yours and the room erupted in soft joy, you remembered what it was to live. The night swallowed you soon after. You took her to a place built in secret, a house on a shore where moonlight kissed the waves. You lit no candles, you needed no fire. She was light enough. She stood before you, untouching, eyes filled with something deeper than trust, desire, surrender, love. You undressed her slowly. Every button undone was a breath stolen, every inch of skin revealed, wholly. When she stood bare before you, you ached, not with hunger, with longing, to give her pleasure, to worship her body, to break the boundary between souls and skin. She lay back on her bed with a whisper of silk, and you joined her. You kissed every inch of her. You made her moan, made her beg, made her yours. When you entered her, you did it slowly, afraid to lose control, terrified to hurt her, but she pulled you deeper, gasping, whispering, "Don't stop." So you didn't. You moved inside her with awe, with restraint, then with fire. She cried out, body arching, hips grinding against yours. You came with a growl, shaking, undone inside her. Afterward, you held her like a man drowning in gratitude. But peace didn't last. Chapter 8, The First Night of Eternity. You had seen many things in your long life: death, beauty, hunger, your kind mistaken for monsters, but nothing compared to watching her rise. Her transformation was agony, not just for her, but for you, because you couldn't touch her, couldn't save her, could only listen as her heartbeat fought itself apart and her body burned with the fire you'd sworn to protect her from. You held her hand as it trembled, kissed her brow as it burned, whispered memories into her skin, hoping they would root her soul in place. And then, silence. A stillness so complete it hollowed you, until her eyes opened. You had prepared yourself for change. You weren't prepared for this. She looked at you with eyes that didn't see through you. They pierced you. Her voice was velvet and steel. Her body, once soft with breath and blood, was now something sculpted by thunder. But what struck you most was the stillness. She didn't tremble anymore. She reached for you, not with need, but with knowing. And when she touched you, when she kissed you, you felt eternity in her mouth. You tried to be gentle that first night, but she didn't want gentleness. She wanted you. She threw you against the wall, climbed onto your lap, and rode you like she'd waited her whole life to know the strength. Her moans were louder, her grip stronger, her movements fiercer. She took you, and you let her. You came undone beneath her, shuddering her name, your hands clinging to her hips as if you were the mortal one now. Later, when you made love again, it was slower, but no less intense. She pressed you to the bed, kissed your chest, traced every line of your body with reverent hands. And when she lowered herself onto you again, you watched her, this goddess you married, move with such control, such passion, that you didn't just love her, you worshipped her. You no longer feared breaking her. She had become your match. And the fire between you, no longer chained, became something vast, something holy. You had crossed through time and pain and death itself, and now, finally, you were hers, wholly, eternally. Chapter 9. The Flame That Bows Stars. You had lived through a century, wars, empires, silence, but nothing ever prepared you for her. Not who she was before the change, fragile, mortal, breathtaking, but who she became after, wild, divine, unstoppable. She was fire wrapped in control, a goddess wearing your last name like a crown. And she chose you, every day. You traveled together, side by side, through mist-draped forests and cities that pulsed with blood and wonder. And through her, you changed, because where once you protected, now you stood equal. She no longer needed your strength, but she craved your touch, and you gave it freely, night after night, until the sky itself seemed to echo with her cries. You remember one night in particular, a city built on ancient ruins. You just faced something older than memory, a creature that saw you both not as danger, but as kin. And when it bowed to her first, and you saw the flicker of realization in her eyes, that she had become something more than even you had imagined, you felt a shiver of pride and awe that no victory had ever given you. Later that night, in the ruins beneath stars that had watched your kind since time's beginning, you took her on an altar older than language. She had wanted to be seen, so you let them watch. You spread her thighs wide and entered her with reverence, your thrusts slow and deep, then ragged as she moaned your name for all to hear. Her fingers clawed at your back, her body a fury of strength and surrender. And when she came, eyes locked to yours, lips parted in a silent scream, it wasn't just pleasure, it was power. And you knew, in that moment, you weren't leading a life anymore. You were writing a myth. You were no longer creatures hiding in shadows. You were the flame in the dark, their gods worshipped about in fear and lust and awe. And she was your reason, your origin story.